Hello, everyone. Well, today, just for a brief moment, I thought I'd talk about commercialization in music. A lot of people say when bands do this, they kind of sell out, or they've gone commercial, or they're making music just to try to make hits and make more money. And I understand all that, but is that really a bad thing? I mean, if you're in a band and you're making records that aren't really selling well, and you can kind of lighten up your music a little bit and sell a lot more records and reach a bigger audience and do bigger and better tours. Isn't that much better than just making these artistic records that very few people really care about? So I saw one time like David Bowie when he was talking about doing Let's Dance. And he said, what was the quote? Like, poverty doesn't equal purity or something like that. Like, just because it's commercialized and he was definitely trying to make hits, it doesn't make it any worse off the music if the music is still good. And I think about bands that I came to know like as a kid in the 80s that they were around in the 70s and maybe even late 60s, but I was kind of coming aware of them in the 80s, like Yes and Genesis. And obviously for somebody like me or my generation, I saw, the video for Owner of the Lonely Heart. And for the most part, yes, they were kind of a new band to me, but like longtime fans would be, oh, that's a terrible record because they kind of sold out and their songs aren't as long as they were. But if you go see Yes today in concert, Owner of the Lonely Heart's going to be their most popular song that they're going to play that everybody knows. It was a hit song. And I get the same thing with like Genesis. When I was a kid, in elementary, junior high school, kind of coming aware of Genesis in the 80s, that, people that knew them in the 70s. Like one of my friends down the street, he had a brother who was older than us, so he knew Genesis of the 70s, and he was very big on the Peter Gabriel era of Genesis. So he would tell us, that's the real Genesis. Their music's a lot better. And even as an adult, I go back and listen to that, the Gabriel era Genesis, and it just doesn't quite connect with me. And I'll have to admit off the bat, it's like I really appreciate the musicianship that these guys put into progressive rock, and it's really good. But for me, I can take maybe one song of it, then I'm kind of done with it for a while. So I guess this kind of commercialization, I'm like the target audience for this. It's like, okay, you still get, because like on these, with Genesis in the 80s, Yes in the 80s, the musicianship is still really good. Like you listen to Genesis, it's not like they're just playing, simple rhythms and everything. It's pretty complex. You listen to Phil Collins, what he's doing on the drums, it's not he's just throwing down a beat. There's like a lot going on there. And the same with Yes. It's like still really complex, but it's just shortened up. The songs are a little more catchy and it can just reach a lot more people. Now, sometimes this may be done where bands kind of take it too far. For example, for me, like Def Leppard with Hysteria was just a little too much for me. I kind of liked they weren't one of my favorites, but as a kid, in the 80s, I liked Def Leppard, High and Dry, Pyromania. Then Hysteria came out and it just was just too poppy. I didn't like the way it sounded, just all the electronics and all that kind of stuff. And I know they had to use the electronic drums for Rick Allen to kind of get through that situation there. But the album in of itself just didn't really do much for me. But there are other bands where maybe they were better when they were a little more complex or a little less commercial. And that might be for like ZZ Top. Like I knew ZZ Top in the 80s from when I was first seeing the videos, Give Me All Your Lovin', Legs, Sharp Dressed Man, and to me at that age they were a new band. But then getting older, you realize, oh, they were around in the 70s, and they might be one where a little less commercialized, like their music from the 70s, maybe early 80s was better. But some of these other bands, I think they improved when they commercialized a bit. And this isn't 100% because there are some bands that they do commercialize a bit and their music just kind of goes down the tank. Like for me, it would be like Metallica when they first came out, Ride the Lightning and Kill 'Em All and all that. They were kind of complex, definitely different, but they were never a headlining band. I remember seeing them. I think they opened for Ozzy a few times, maybe even, I don't even know if they opened for Motley Crue. But when I was a kid being taken to concerts when I was a teenager. They were kind of like the opening band. People knew who they were, but they weren't really like super popular yet. Then they made Black and Load, and they became much more commercialized, but still, I thought the music kind of wasn't as good as they got commercialized. Where other bands like Genesis point out that I think they definitely improved as they got more commercialized. Well, anyways, that's all that was going on in my mind today. Once again, thanks everybody who sat through this and watched and listened, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Have a great day.